Hey guys, my name is Theo Van. Today I would like to do a reaction video to a Young Turk video. I watch the Young Turks, not a bunch of their stuff, because usually I can call it out before I see it. There are some headlines that are not obviously untrue, and I try to watch a little bit of everything. I am a fence sitter. I believe that we are supposed to be a nation of fence sitters, and we have gone so far. The division of our politics, of the establishment, has worked so well, we can no longer have fence sitters. It's either you're with us or against us, the end, rather than having any compromise. Well, one thing that I lean right on is the sexualization of children. I believe it should not exist. I believe that there should be punishment for it. I believe that we should protect the innocence of children at all cost, even if that cost is disappointing mentally ill adults, confused adults, or sick adults that should not be in population. So let's listen to this little video here. It's a very serious topic. It was labeled as, if you know a teenage girl, please watch this video. Now, I do want to point out that Anna Kasparian has been one of the only people that I've ever seen on the Young Turks come out and actually apologize. She apologized for the Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, I take that for what it is, considering, you can't come out with one 10, 15-minute video and expect everybody to be like, oh, well, she's okay. But, that's more than what most news stations, everything that a mainstream media has said has come basically to be false, and they spend 30 seconds saying, sorry, we knew it, but we had an agenda to push. So anyway, let's see what they have to say.
The next story has to do with self-harm and suicide, so I wanted to just kind of provide a trigger warning considering the heavy nature of what we're about to discuss. Now, a devastating study just released by the Centers for Disease Control found that teenage girls are experiencing record rates of depression, violence, and thoughts of suicide. The CDC's biennial...
I'm going to stop right there because, to me, I feel like the right has basically, and not all the right, I mean, just some of them. I mean, this is a pretty mainstream topic. I myself have gotten caught up in things where I call out pedophilia or child abuse, or forms of it, or political decisions that will make it easier for that to happen. And I get called transphobic, homophobic, all sorts of names. And it's childish. It's a childish mentality to think that I'm transphobic because I don't feel it's necessary for a grown man to pretend to be somebody, to put himself in front of children, especially whenever he's looking like a Las Vegas dancer. If they want to do that on their own, go for it. I don't care. I don't think anybody cares, honestly. But whenever you're doing it to adult or to children, and I don't even blame them. I actually blame the parents. But with this movement and the way it's being pushed, we're not helping these children, and all we're doing is feeding sick people who will take advantage of it. One of my arguments is like, if you're LGBTQ, any part of that movement, we should be on the same page when it comes to the sexualization of children. If you think that I'm if you think I have some sort of fear or phobia of any of you, you're wrong. I have a fear that weak people are putting people in power to make it easier for children to be sexualized and abused. I don't like that.
Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which was given to 17,000 teenagers at public and private high schools across the United States in 2021, found that nearly 1 in 3 adolescent girls seriously considered suicide that year, representing an increase of 60% over the previous decade. Now, before I get to more details about the findings of this study, I just want to note, The researchers did not give reasons for why this is. They didn't really.
There's a reason they don't give reasons, because it's like, I'm going to say the only thing that's really new is that we are letting children make decisions for themselves, and we're confusing the shit out of them. We're just absolutely confusing them. We're saying you can be what you want to be, even if that goes against the laws of nature, the laws of science, because of feelings. And this is a failure on both parts. Most, we even did this before. Both sides did this. Like whenever a dad says, my daughter's a princess, she deserves the best of the best of the best. That's bullshit. Because you're not teaching, if you're teaching your daughter that she deserves the best of the best of the best, that means she's just owed the best of the best of the best. You need to teach them that they need to earn, and they need to meet the best of the best of the best halfway. And they also need to be the best. We've gotten far from it. They just think right now, women, and it's not all of them, but there's a big majority of them that are just toxic. Toxic femininity is horrible. They think that they're owed the best no matter what they do. And that's how you raise a princess. A entitled princess.
Explore reasons for why this is. So any reasons that we might think of are just speculation, of course. But think about the year here. It's 2021. We're talking about teenage girls. A lot of people were still at home. A lot of schools were still shut down. Students aren't able to socialize the way they would be able to if things weren't.
The shutting down of the community, which now we know, which people had called this out, that this is more dangerous to the elderly and unhealthy. The shutting down of children actually harm them. And there's a lot of people out there right now that will not admit that I'm mad at my neighbor because they didn't fall in line with what the government was telling us to do over something that was deadly to the elderly and the unhealthy. So we shut down the community for the vulnerable, whereas the vulnerable could have just stayed home. And then the healthy, we didn't have to shut down the economy for that. We just didn't.
Shut down. So I think about that and the importance of socializing when you're young, especially. And I think that probably played a role. But again, that's not what the study said, because they didn't really give reasons for this. Let me keep going.
Oh, yeah,
go ahead.
I have theories on it too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys will have theories on it,
Y'all
because
know-
the numbers are.
Y'all know Chunk Uger. He's the guy that said that I could beat Joe Rogan in a fight. And he's like, I'm bigger than him. It's just science. It's basically what it's saying. This alone should tell you that this guy does not go by. He all he's going by is the cover of a book. He judges things, and that's how he lives life. If he thinks that he can beat Joe Rogan, a trained MMA fighter, against a politician who gets paid to say these words more than you and I'll ever see, that's how his mind thinks. I see a picture, I see a book cover, and I'm going to judge it, and that's how the way I think life should be. That's what he thinks.
Gigantic and very unsettling. So let's give you the numbers and talk about it.
So 13% of the respondents said that they had attempted suicide in the past year, while 7% of boys reported the same, and 57% of girls said they felt persistently sad or hopeless almost every day for at least 2 weeks in a row, a possible indication of the experience of depressive symptoms, according to the CDC report. This story makes me want to cry. It's so depressing.
Guys, context. So first off, the numbers are skyrocketing, okay? So this is not normal.
When we started saying, yes, anybody can be whatever gender they want to be, which has been a movement here lately. It's the new division. When we do that to children, it confuses them. And when we're lying to children, that's what we're doing. That's what they're doing if that's what they're pushing. You can be whatever gender you want to be. The doctor could have gotten it wrong. You're confusing them.
Because sometimes you'll see a big number and go, oh, I didn't know it was that. And it'll.
Parents are also to blame for this, because whenever I see a woman come out and say, oh, my kids are all trans, non-binary or whatever, that's bullshit. She's treating those children as pets. She's treating those children like, what's her name? skinny blonde that used to be on the show who had a poodle. Can't think of her name. Paris Hilton. She dressed up her dog. It was like a little Barbie doll. And that's what people are treating their children as Barbie dolls and fashion products.
You'll find out that it was always that high. You're like, wow, it's just something you didn't know. No, the numbers are growing by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
13% of teenage girls didn't think about suicide, tried to commit suicide. Thought about suicide is a different number, much larger. We'll get to that too. 13%, that is gigantic. That's unbelievable. 57% reporting persistently sad or hopeless. That's a huge majority of teenage girls in this country. That's like an enormous iceberg of an epidemic that nobody's talking about.
Yep.
Wow.
We were talking about if you do these things, things are going to happen, cause and effect. And then we got called homophobic and transphobic and Nazis. So just throwing that out there.
So just a few more details here. Kathleen Ethier, who is the director of the CDC's Division of Adolescent and School Health, says that high rates of depression and suicidal ideation among teenage girls was almost certainly linked to another finding in the survey, which is that 14% of girls reported that they had been forced to have sex, which is actually an increase of 27% since the last time the survey was taken back in 2019.
So when right-wingers came out and says, hey, we need to stop sexualizing children, we need to start having little girls get off of social media, we need to stop doing this, because when we're trying to protect girls, there's things you got to do to protect girls. And whenever the argument is, hey, well, people shouldn't look at little girls this way, so they should be able to do what they want. People who want to protect the innocent and vulnerable cannot control the people who act out and are criminals and have sick, psychotic thoughts. So that's why we do these things, to protect our loved ones and the vulnerable. And whenever you fight the guys who are trying to protect people, you're leaving the door wide open for the psychotic people who can look at your argument and see how pathetic your argument and your victimization of people is, and say, I'll just hop on their boat and pretend to be one of them, and I can take advantage of it all day long. And then whenever I get caught, I'll have the protection because I'm a part of that community. That'd probably sum this whole video up right there.
The rate of sexual assault was even higher among queer teenagers, with 20% of them reporting that they had been forced to have sex. Also, rates of sexual violence more generally also increased among girls from 15% in 2017 to 18% in 2021. Right, so this graph kind of shows that increase, and so there's a lot going on.
I may look up the graph and put it up here. I might. I don't know. You can do it yourself. Look into this shit. That's the best form of way to doing this, is look it all up yourself. The number of the LGBTQ children has gone up because it's a fad. It's a momentary thing that's just the new thing. Like fidget spinners were a thing, and now the fact that we're openly sexualizing children, and anybody who disagrees with a form of sexualization of children is, the enemy or a Nazi, because we live in blanket politic times.
Right? Again, even though this particular study doesn't give concrete reasons why the adolescents are feeling this way, you got to take into account, I mean, Cenk mentioned social media when we were at break, and I think that's also part of it. There have been completely other, different studies that looked into the impact of social media on the mental health of adolescents, both girls and boys. But think about the insane standards of beauty that's constantly depicted on social media, how people tend to post the best side of their lives on social media, which tends to make others think that.
Let's call it what it is. These people are LARPing through life, pretending to have the perfect life, pretending to be pretty, pretending all these things. And this is the new thing, pretending to be something that odds are you're not, but it just makes you feel as if you fit in better, rather than coming to the realization of life and accepting you being perfect the way you are.
That their lives are just terrible because it's not perfect and glossy like what they see on Instagram or what have you.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in that theory, but I want to give you one more fact because it leads to a second theory. So graphic 5, among teenagers the CDC identified as LGBTQ+, they left out the T, and so
Like we said, these numbers have gone up. The numbers of LGBTQ went up whenever that was the new thing and the new cool thing to be. And now that trans, non-binary, or whatever all that other stuff is, that's the new thing to be. So that just skyrocketed. And one thing that they will never tell you, well, the right side will. They'll tell you that there is no study showing the difference in suicide ratings in trans people before or after they transition. It's the same. It doesn't go down. Once they transition, their suicide rate is still higher than anybody else.
they're not in the survey. 69% reported feeling persistent sadness for at least 2 weeks in a row. 22% of LGBTQ+ adolescents said they had attempted suicide. Wow, if you include transgender people in there, the numbers will be even higher. Probably, we don't know because it's not in the poll, in the survey. But we do know from other surveys that their numbers are the highest, right? 69%, 7 out of 10 feeling despondent. 22% tried suicide. Again, gigantic epidemic. I mean, it's unbelievable, those numbers. I mean, look, okay, so this gets to the political part of it. So social media is not at all political, and that's a massive problem, and some issues are political, some aren't, right? But the politics of it, there's constant attacks against LGBTQ people, including LGBTQ kids, right? Hey, you're not allowed to teach about gay people in school because they're so bad and awful and terrible, right? Transgender kids. And guys, right wing says the #1 problem in America, and they don't say necessarily no.
See, he's manipulating this to make him feel right about this. He is blaming a political party. The political party that says, hey, if this is what you do to children, if you confuse them the way you're doing it and tell them lies about how they can live a fairy tale life and it be accepted, you're lying to your children. You're abusing your children. You're treating them as objects to also fit in with other parents who are probably doing the same thing. And then they're blaming the right-wingers who's already warned them that this is going to happen if this is what you're going to do, is teach your children to live a lie.
#1, but they've been addressing it as if it's the #1 problem, is
This is why he's disgusting. I'm not even going to go any further. If you guys want to watch this video, go watch it. Look it up. And I don't advise it. If you have high blood pressure problems, don't do it, because they're full of shit lies will just outright piss you off, because everything that comes out, everything that disproves their point, they will manipulate it to make them still feel right. And both sides say this about each other, but let's face it, if you're born with a dick, you can't tell them, you can be a girl if you want to, and you can choose. You can't have a tattoo, you can't smoke, you can't own a gun, you can't do shit, but you can choose whether or not to have your dick chopped off or your tits. That's bullshit. That's child abuse. That's parents choosing for their children to harm them. Y'all are disgusting people, if you agree with the Young Turks. And we shouldn't do anything about it as writers, right-ish wingers. Like I said, I'm a fence sitter. We shouldn't do anything about it, because as soon as we give the government the power to do something about this, they're going to use it against us, and that's what they're counting on. They're counting on using that against us to make a mistake and giving them the power to do something with your children. They want to do this to their children. The only way to move on without bloodshed is them sacrificing their own, because they're doing that. And then whenever they come for our kids, because they don't have any, we need to stand our ground. And that's what's happening right now. They're taking children from parents in America, not just overseas or neighbors. This stuff just makes my blood boil. We can either choose to protect innocent children's lives, or the mentally ill, and the left is choosing to they're choosing the feelings of adults who you could never make happy over the protection of children. So we need to recognize that while still maintaining our stance of not giving them the power to do anything about it, because they will abuse it and they will take your children. They'll be like, you know what? You guys are right. You shouldn't be mutilating those children. You know what? We're going to go over there and do something about it. Oh, wait. You're homeschooling your children? You know what? That's probably not right either. We should probably go and take your kids too. That's just the way it works. That's what they're going to do. So if your enemy's making a mistake, especially hurting themselves out, let them make that mistake. Otherwise, you'll regret it because they're going to take that power and use it against you.